African Airways is getting its international wings back. Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan will officially relaunch SAA tomorrow, 2 years after the airline returned from the brink of bankruptcy. As part of the relaunch, the state-owned airline will resume direct flights to Sao Paulo in Brazil. This route was one of many canned nearly 4 years ago during the business rescue process. The first flights will depart from Cape Town on the 31st of October, that's next week, and from Johannesburg on the 6th of November. Let's break down the significance of this takeoff now. I'm joined by Guy Leitch of SA Flyer magazine. Guy, good afternoon. Good morning. Welcome to NewsLink. You see, I'm used to hosting in the afternoon, you know, and my TD Nape has been laughing at me each time I say good afternoon. It's in the morning. Hi, thank you for joining us, Guy. You know, tell us about, just broadly first, the significance of what's happening around SAA.
Yeah, hi, Dan, and nice to be with you on this. Good morning. The significance is important, especially from the government's political point of view, because they've always viewed South African Airways as the flag carrier. That means, you know, they want to be able to fly the flag in international destinations around the world. And it's significant that they're now opening South America simply because it is the first proper, true long-haul intercontinental flight. But let's not forget that they've been servicing West Africa almost since reopening, with Accra in particular. But the significance can't be lost. They've tried hard to get these routes back. And I think it's great as well that they're operating both from Johannesburg and from Cape Town, because we're increasingly seeing the sort of the center, the locus, if you like, of airline operations moving from Johannesburg to Cape Town, particularly in response to the Western Cape's Air Access Initiative. So SAA is following the market. That's good news. It is a very limited offering at this stage, as you said in your introduction. It's only 4 flights a week. And the reason for one of the reasons for that is because they just don't have the fleet of aircraft to service any more flights than that. Yeah,
I was going to think that maybe it's because of the cost of aviation fuel as well, because, you know, they've come out of the doldrums literally. Could this signify the beginning of better days for SAA, or is it too early to call, Guy?
You know what they say, one swallow does not make a summer. I think it's too early to call. I've just asked Professor John Lamola, the interim CEO, what their next route will be, and that was his exact answer. He can't say yet, it's too early. My suspicion is that the only viable next route that they can fly will be to Perth. Qantas is already operating the Sydney route, so that's the one route where they won't have much competition on. The real problem that they face getting back into long-haul international operations is that the other airlines have properly moved into their space, eaten their lunch, as it were, and it'll be extremely difficult for SAA to now be able to compete on England, London, even Gatwick, or Europe, particularly Germany, and the United States. The airlines have really moved in a big way to filling the space left by SAA, and SAA, quite frankly, just doesn't have the aircraft to be able to service those routes either.
Yeah, Africa, profitability there, not much. You mentioned this long haul. I think Perth makes sense. There's a lot of South Africans who've moved there, and there's a big traffic, and it's not being serviced a lot. So, you know, people will be traveling to and fro instead of going via Sydney.
Absolutely. You know, one of the previous CEOs, Mr. Vianney Johana, told me emphatically that SAA couldn't make money east of Dubai. And that's because the so-called Middle East 3 super connectors, you know, the Emirates, Dubai, Qatar and Etihad, have really cornered the market for further east operations to, for instance, Hong Kong or Beijing or Japan. So SAA is unlikely to be able to expand in that direction. Perth is the one route that they had where they didn't really have competition. Beyond that, I just don't think that they have the economy of scale or the most recent aircraft that will be able to compete on these routes. You know, they're still, in a sense, have an Airbus A340, which is a 4-engine fuel guzzler. Yes, they have got one or two A330s now, which are more efficient, but they can't compete against the latest Airbus A350s or Boeing 777s. So SAA is going to really struggle to be able to make money on these long-haul routes.
Yeah, can it make money on our continent?
No, to answer your question, it's always made money in Africa. Africa is a very inefficient market. Most of the airlines are state-owned and are protected, and therefore it's relatively easy to compete against them. And indeed, West Africa in particular is a very ripe or open market for South Africa because, as you know, there is no dominant airline, there is no major airline in West Africa. Nigeria hasn't been able to produce a viable airline, and nor have any of the others. So SAA has had West Africa very much to itself. But for the rest of Africa, I'm afraid Ethiopian has gobbled it up, and Kenyan Airways is still doing very well as well. So I can't see SAA being able to muscle in there, but it should really be making good money out of West Africa.
Yeah, it is going to remain a small airline now. It won't be as big as it used to be.
It just won't be as big as it used to be. The big question is how is it going to fund modern aircraft? You know, the airline likes to say that, well, its leases, its previous bankers or lessors who provided with aircraft are still looking or happy to lend to SAA. I'm not so sure about that. These lessors took a big loss, a big haircut when the airline went into business rescue. I think they're going to be charging a premium for any new leases to SAA. And that's going to make, obviously, the airline that much harder to be profitable as well. So I just don't see them having the size or the cost structure to be able to grow much further. And therefore, they're going to have to be a small niche operator, probably just about a quarter of the size of what they were in 2019.
And can they become profitable at that level?
That's the million-dollar question. I, for one, believe they can be. Professor Lamola and the rest of the SAA board are to be commended for taking a measured approach back to the return to flying. They just haven't, gone out and flown the flag wherever they can get destinations. It's taken them, 2.5 years to open the Sao Paulo route, and they're going to continue to be slow. I am worried about cash flow. They had a couple of early wins early on when they managed to get back so-called blocked funds from places like Angola and Zimbabwe, and that helped their cash flow. But we saw just 6 or 7 months ago the airline saying that it had made 150 million rand loss over 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. That is hopefully just too short a period to draw any long-term inferences from. But nonetheless, it's worrying that the airline is not looking very profitable at this stage. From all accounts that I'm seeing, the loads are not very high. I've seen reports in the order of 50 to 60% loads, and that's not good at all. These days, an airline really can't make money with less than about a 70 to 75% load. And the other key variant is yield. A yield is the amount of money that each passenger pays. So it looks like it's good that they're not savagely discounting seats and they're maintaining the yield. But still, yield is a very competitive market. They don't have the economies of scale to be able to compete, and they're not getting the loads. So I am very worried that the promises are going to be broken and that SAA will indeed be coming back to the taxpayer sooner rather than later, either for new aircraft or just to subsidize operating expenses.
Thank you very much for your time and insights, as usual. Guy Leitch is, of course, the editor of SAA Flyer magazine, just talking to us today ahead of tomorrow's official relaunch of South African Airways SAA by the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and also announcing the resumption of the route to Sao Paulo in Brazil as the first intercontinental route since SAA survived that business rescue process.